friend of the program here on the Mercedes-Benz Vans phone line, Tim Cowlishaw. How you doing, Tim?
I'm doing fine. Let's not forget the day here began yesterday with local hero Jordan Spieth. One shot off the lead at the Byron Nelson, where he's never won. Man shoots 25 under par, and he can't win the tournament. So it was the difficulty of that and the joy of the Mavericks and then the heartbreak of the Stars, all in about 12, 13 hours.
So let's just jump in on the Mavs, Tim.
Yes.
I know this does sound like an around-the-horn question, but I'll ask it anyway here.
Okay.
Where does Luka rank? Where does he rank right now? And not just Mavs history, but I'm talking about Dallas sports history at age 23.
Yeah, in terms of trying to think of a player who's ever been that young with that kind of upside, and you could look at Aikman and Emmett when they win a Super Bowl, Aikman's fourth year, Emmett's third year. So something similar to that. But Cowboys always kind of, when the Cowboys are good, there's a lot of guys who are good. And basketball is different, and that's why Dirk sort of stands apart from everybody here over the last 20 years. And now you have the kind of insane idea that the Mavericks get to replace the greatest European import of all time with maybe the next one. I'm sure Giannis is in that discussion as well. But regardless, it's there's an excitement about Luka because he's unguardable. There's nobody has a decent answer, and the Suns thought Mikal Bridges was a pretty good answer, a Defensive Player of the Year finalist, and he got destroyed. I think it even killed his offensive game too. And so it's exciting to see what might happen with a team that sometimes in the regular season looked like it was stalling out and might win 50, but it's going nowhere. And now the feeling is who's going to stop Luka?
Yeah, and that trade of Porzingis for Dinwiddie seemed to open something up, right? I mean, walk me through that trade and where we are now.
Yeah, I'd like to go back in time and maybe rip up the column I wrote after that. Not that I didn't really criticize. I mean, I said you got to get rid of Porzingis if you can. You just 3 years you cannot depend on him playing. I said, but you'll have to remind me of all the All-Star games Spencer Dinwiddie has been featured in, and he during the regular season he had his best stats here, better stats than he ever had in his career. Now the playoffs he kind of took a step back in the Utah series, but last night he went crazy, and he was very good in Game 6. So what it did was, okay, we're not going to play. We're going to play small all the time, is their attitude, and we're going to play so small sometimes that it's going to be really disruptive. And they play, this offense called 5 out that a couple other teams have played, where everybody stands around the 3-point line. It sounds like the simplest thing in the world. But if your team has Rudy Gobert or DeAndre Ayton, they don't have anyone to guard, and they get exposed all the time. And that's what continued to happen in this series. And Dinwiddie and Bertans always comes in and just throws in a couple 30-footers. I would like to see what he could do if they just let him launch time after time, because he is crazy accurate on threes. He doesn't do a lot otherwise. But, yeah, I mean, that just turned him into the three-point shooting team in the league right now.
And so what you got a good Luka story that folks would like to know? Anything about him in the Dallas community, how he has had the welcome mat rolled out, and how he's just going to be a fixture there for a very long time? Anything to do with Cuban and him?
The Mavericks certainly hope he's a fixture here for a long time, but we know guys with max contracts, James Harden and others, have found a way to leave. I've never thought he, as competitive as he is, he doesn't strike me as a guy who would just, if they had lost the Utah series somehow, just said, I got to get out of here. But we know that could have happened. But that's one of the big upsides of getting at least this far, that you're in the Western Conference Finals, you're playing the team that's won 3 titles. Wouldn't be the end of the world if you lost this series. The feeling still would be great going into next year, but now there's a great chance that they could win this series. And, a lot of people outside of Dallas, they notice the whining here too. He wants every call, and it's crazy. But he also smiles more than any NBA player in history. And sometimes after he's made a shot, but really throughout the game. And so he's kind of a joyful player on top of having this game that I thought early in his career, I thought he was Chris Mullin, much like Chris Mullin. He plays at a different speed, but he can get his shot and do everything. And I even talked to Tim Hardaway about it, since his son plays here. And he very quickly said, Tim, Luka's better than Chris. and Chris was pretty good. He was on the dream team, but I think we now know Luka's better than Chris, and he's probably better than everybody left in the playoffs.
Tim Cowlishaw right here on the Rich Eisen Show after a Game 7 Palooza in Dallas. Was there watch parties anywhere with the Stars? The Stars, as soon as Luka destroyed the Suns, 27 at the half, and the Suns had 27 at the half, and this thing was wrapped. And as soon as that game ended, the Stars scored first, and I just thought this was going to be the day, right? I thought
it
that was going to be
maybe it was. And, yeah, that was the nice thing. If you really wanted – if your interest was divided – you could leave the Mavericks game in the third quarter if you wanted, excuse me, and you weren't going to miss anything. But even if you stayed to the end, and just recorded for a bit, Jamie Benn scores 40 seconds in. But there was a good chance that wouldn't hold up, even with the Stars getting maybe the best series from a goaltender they've ever gotten. And that includes Belfour, and that includes Marty Turco against Vancouver and Ben Bishop a few years ago. It was just crazy how good Jake Ottinger was. But 64 saves, when that's not enough, they didn't quite pull off the parlay and join the Mavs. It's not the same. I'm not going to pretend there's as many Stars fans as there are Mavericks fans here, but they have their own group, and it's certainly. It certainly grows in the playoffs when they get to a Game 7. So it was a hell of a night, and the overlap really didn't amount to a disaster for people missing something great on one side. They just couldn't quite finish the job.
Tim Cowlishaw, the Dallas Morning News here on the Rich Eisen Show. Jerry Jones telling Peter King he's never going to sell the Cowboys. How is that news, right? Other than just I love Peter, and him talking to Jerry Jones, chopping it up, is always the greatest. But he
said that many times. He says it every year when Forbes list comes out and the Cowboys are number one and they're worth $6.1 billion. He says it doesn't matter. I'm not selling. My kids are going to inherit this team. So there's no news. People might be curious. Well, who wants to pay $10 billion? They're paying a little over market value. There might be a time when these things slow down. Maybe not. Hasn't happened yet. But no, he's not going anywhere. And the difficult thing with that is that's not the kind of story that really excites the fan base. Oh, good. A reminder that the Jones family will hold on to this thing for the next 30 or 40 years, because it has not been a great last 26 years for this team.
Well, I got to be honest with you, Tim. I don't. If I had to say the Cowboys are better or worse or less improved, if I'm going to be even generous, than the team that strolled off the field with no time left and having no shot in the end zone against the 49ers, I would choose they're not as good. You lose Randy Gregory, you trade away Amari Cooper, you re-sign Gallup. I don't know how healthy he's going to be. I'm wondering about the wear and tear on Zeke, because as soon as I saw, in our schedule release show, week 10, Cowboys and Mike McCarthy go to Green Bay. I'm like, when was the last time they went there? It was Dak's rookie season. He had 3 touchdown passes, and Zeke almost had 160 yards rushing on almost 30 carries. And I'm like, Zeke just doesn't do that anymore. I guess it's not asked of him. I don't know if he physically can. So I'm wondering if this team's better. What do you think?
Oh, I don't think they're close to being better. I think the Eagles have caught them. I don't know what height that is in the NFC. I think the Eagles destroyed them during the draft with the moves they made of getting whichever player you liked from Georgia. They got them both to go with A.J. Brown. And, you lose Lyle Collins and you lose Connor Williams. Okay, you're going to replace him with your first-round pick. Your first-round pick's 21. He played at Tulsa, not USC. He led, the country in holding penalties. Your second-round pick is seen as a pass rush guy who doesn't do anything else. You didn't do anything in free agency besides lose the people you mentioned. I mean, there's no reason for them to be as good. They tend to refuse to play their best running back as much as they should, Tony Pollard. I think he's been better than Zeke too.
Yes, right.
Zeke and Zach for 2 or 3 years. They don't want to acknowledge it because they paid Zeke money. It's just they have enough talent that they're going to beat Washington and New York 4 times, and they'll get to somewhere in the range of 10-7. But I don't think anybody here believes they're as good as they were when they finished the season. If they do, it's a miracle that I don't know how you come up with that equation.
I had Mike McCarthy on this show after the Combine, Tim, and he said he spoke to Jerry about the comments that Jerry had made at the Senior Bowl about Dan Quinn coming back, because Dan knows what others previously know, that anybody who stays here as an assistant for as long as they did, they have a shot to be the head coach here. And McCarthy said he spoke to Jerry about all that, and how he even spoke to Quinn before he came back, saying, hey, that's going to be part of the conversation here. Are we all cool with that? And it seems to me that is no doubt a subtext to this 2022 season coming up, for sure.
You have the Quinn subtext. You have the Sean Payton subtext. That is constant here. Coaches come here and think, I can deal with that. I will not get caught up in that. Chan Gailey came in here, fine, pious man, thinking I'm not going to get caught up in the Cowboy stuff. And the next thing you know, he's in Wichita Falls having to lie about, Michael Irvin going after, I can't even think, the offensive lineman with the clippers at his throat. So, I mean, you are put in preposterous situations as a head coach here, and your power is less than it should be. And veteran players see that, going back to Dion, and they all know it. And that's why in a lot of ways Jason Garrett was kind of a perfect head coach for here, because I think he understood it best. And while he deserved to go because of his playoff record, he at least knew he was the guy to take the brunt of the criticism and be boring for the media and do all that, and that was the best way to do the job here. And I think Mike is already a little frustrated in having to deal with some of the things that Jerry puts in play.
Before I let you go, Tim, we were talking about Luka a few minutes ago, and how you said, well, you Dallas hopes that he'll stay, right? With max contract players have gotten themselves out if they want. What does Cuban do to make sure that doesn't happen? He strikes me as somebody who's smart and he knows what he's doing, not just because I see him on Shark Tank. He definitely is a guy who knows how to build a franchise and around people. What does he do to ensure this best he can, that Luka's a happy camper, and even if they do lose to the Dubs, he understands what's being built there?
I don't think it's anything personal. I don't think it's Cuban started out showering players with gifts and the best lockers and the best toys, and everybody has that now, best hotels, and everybody in the league has all those things. He didn't do a great job surrounding Dirk with talent for the end of his career, and some of the things, there was a thinking here a month ago that they had misfired on most of those things, and if they had lost to Utah, that would have continued to be the thinking. But now with they're just a very difficult offense to deal with. Phoenix, I actually thought, figured out right away, you got to let Luka shoot 2-point shots. You can't run off your man at the 3-point line like Utah did constantly and let him penetrate and throw it to those guys, because they're going to make those shots. So just the team success really is all it's going to come down to. I don't think there's an atmosphere he can create. Everybody's got that these days, but it's just got to be winning. And right now they've obviously surprised kind of the world by beating the Phoenix Suns. So that's the best thing Cuban or anyone could hope for.
Tim, thanks for the time. Appreciate it. Look for my call as the Mavs matriculate as far as they can.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for the call. Always appreciate it. Thank you. That's Tim Cowlishaw, at Tim Cowlishaw on Twitter. I follow him. You should as well, right here on the program. Hey, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Watch more right here.